more on the importance of this, let's discuss live now with a political researcher in Riyadh, Salman Al-Ansari. Salman, sir, thanks so much for joining us here at RT. Now, Syria is obviously officially back in the Arab League. What does this return seat at the table say about geopolitics and the stability in the region?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think this Arab summit is a very important one. It comes at a very extraordinary moment with exceptional global and regional changes. And I can actually summarize this summit by calling it the Summit of the Arab Strategic Sovereignty. The state of global polarization began to form in a very disruptive manner these days, and we can see that. And the world is falling into the logical fallacy of false dichotomy. So either you are with the East camp or with the West one. And I think the Arabs decided to match their geographic centrality to global policy centrality, and to basically be at the center and follow the camp of their own exclusive interest. And as Fyodor Dostoevsky said, to go wrong in one's own way is better than to go right in someone else's. So overall, I think this Arab summit is very important, not only for Syria or having Syria to be back to the Arab fold, but also for Sudan, for Yemen, for so many conflicts that we have been witnessing in the Arab world. And I think there are three pillars for this summit: the Arab strategic sovereignty, regional security, and economic partnership. And we hope this summit will have great outcomes that can actually put the region, the Arab region, on track.
It certainly does look like things are changing for the better in the region. Now, Russia was one of Syria's most staunch allies during this last decade. How does this reflect on Moscow now that Syria has been welcomed back by a broader base, would you say?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think Russia and China and the United States, all these superpowers are considered to be partners of the region in the Middle East specifically, and the Arab world. And when it comes to Syria and what it means to them, definitely Syria is an important Arab country, and it has been proven that the stalemate was not constructive. Normalization with Syria will help put an end to the Syrian refugee crisis in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Egypt. And these three countries have great economic pressures, as we all know. So there are, I believe, 1.5 million Syrian refugees just in Lebanon. So meaning that there is one refugee for every 4 Lebanese citizens. So imagine the kind of outcome that would happen if we normalize relations with Syria and get all these refugees back. The same goes with Jordan, and they have 1.3 million refugees. The same goes with Egypt. They have more than 500,000 Syrians. So the normalization with Syria will positively cast to all neighboring countries. And I think the Arabs, to be honest, will not provide great assistance to Syria or help in rebuilding for free. There must be something in return, such as commitment to a strong commitment to expelling foreign militias, specifically the Iranian-backed ones, enacting definitely some political reforms based on the United Nations Resolution 2254, and also combating drug cartels and giving a comprehensive amnesty to the opposition abroad. So I think these things have been discussed behind the scenes, because definitely the Arabs will not be welcoming Syria without having some real and substantial compromises from Damascus.
Okay, Salman, before I let you go, a lot of you're right, that's a whole topic that we need to go into in more detail about the ins and outs of how Syria will be in the Arab League. But before I let you go, we've heard a lot of Western leaders expressing concerns about bringing Bashar al-Assad back into the fold. In your opinion, so why is that?
I don't think this has merit. Why? Because at the end of the day, most of the Arab countries, specifically the GCC and specifically Saudi Arabia, has been voicing its concerns with the same concerns that the Congress, and specifically the Congress bill that is called Sizer, or the same concerns, which is having political reforms. So we are actually demanding from the Syrians the same demands that the Americans have been demanding. So it's actually going to pave the way for the whole world to put Damascus accountable. And at the end of the day, what we need to see is, as I said, like the political reforms. We need the refugees to be able to be sent back, and to also have Syria to be a constructive player in the region, rather than just like a melting pot for all these militias that are wreaking havoc in the country. So at the end of the day, I think the Western countries, specifically the United States, will realize that that move of Saudi Arabia is very constructive for regional and global security, because what we are demanding from the Syrians are the same exact demands that the Americans are asking for.
Salman, I'm enjoying our conversation. I'm not going to let you go. You know, let's talk a little bit about Damascus and Riyadh. Now, they are obviously strengthening their relations, and we know they've returned to diplomatic missions, if you like. But can we see, I mean, Riyadh is by far one of the most powerful countries, Saudi Arabia is by far one of the most powerful countries in the region. Are we likely to see more of a sort of a big brother role here, or is everyone on equal terms?
I think there is no real clear answer as of yet. Because why? Because if we go back to the Chinese mediation between Saudi Arabia and Iran, definitely having Syria to be back to the Arab fold had something to do with the undisclosed agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia that was mediated by China. What kind of compromises that have been agreed upon, we don't know yet. Or have we just signed relations and to normalize relations to have them, to have the diplomatic, embassies and all these kind of things, and putting everything on the agendas? I don't think so. Definitely there has been some kind of compromises that have been agreed upon, but definitely Saudi Arabia will be taking a very constructive role when it comes to having Syria to be back to the Arab fold, but that's gonna happen with a heavy price. That heavy price should be actually happening in Damascus.
Salman, before I get cut off, I want one more question from you. The world is changing. We can see that. It's no more of this USA bullying. You've got to do it my way. Even with Biden, when he was in Saudi Arabia, it was a different sort of a reception. The world's changing. We're looking at a multipolar world. The Middle East is standing up on its own. Russia is standing up its own. China is standing up on its own. How do you see, give me just a minute or so of your time, how do you see the world sort of changing in the next decade?
It is absolutely clear that it is a multipolar world right now. Definitely, we are having and enjoying strong relations with the United States. We are enjoying strong relations with China, with Russia, with most of the European countries, etc. And that's the kind of role Saudi Arabia wants to take and wants to convince the other Arab countries to take. Why? Because also in the Islamic tradition, the Prophet Muhammad has said the best place you can take is in the middle. So that's actually part of it's like in our DNA, the idea of always being in a central, in the centricity, and to be in the center and to not only taking sides here and there. So that's not going to be constructive for us. Definitely the future has a lot of challenges when it comes to the global economic system. How is it going to look like? Who is going to be in charge of applying and taking the initiative of having the United Nations to be back to the game in a more constructive role rather than just taking sides? So a lot of challenges that we're gonna face in the future, but that doesn't mean that we have to take a specific block over the other, because that's not gonna be in the interest of ourselves, and it's not gonna be in the interest of any nation that wants to prosper and build up good relations. What I would love to see definitely is to have really positive kind of momentum to be back. We want the Ukrainian-Russian issue to be ended. We know that there have been a lot of provocations from the United States against Russia. We know that, but at the same time, we don't believe that the Russians had enough justifications to invade Ukraine. But what we need to do is to have them to be back to the negotiating table. And the good thing is that the Ukrainian President Mr. Zelensky, has just arrived to Jeddah, and he actually tweeted about his priorities. Among them is energy partnership and a possible peace plan. So that's in itself is good. So that shows that the Saudis have been talking with the Russians and also with the Ukrainians to have some sort of like a first step kind of move to de-escalate.
Indeed.
Because the idea of escalate to de-escalate is not going to work. What's going to work is de-escalate to de-escalate.
Exactly. Salman, sadly, we have run out of time. Really enjoyed talking to you. Dialogue is key. Let's hope they all get to the table quickly. Thank you so much for joining me here today on RT. Pleasure talking to you, sir. Thanks again.